Hey everybody, Nick here, and today we're going to do a little bit of, well, not quite disassembly and maintenance, but disassembly and modification of this little guy right here. This, of course, is the Spyderco Delica. This particular specimen is in K390 steel, which is a very, very impressive steel. I'm a big fan of K390, generally speaking, and this guy has actually gotten a fair amount of carry, but today what I want to do is change things up a little bit using these guys. This is a pair of titanium scales and a backspacer from Flytanium. That's right, that's their logo. I probably should have taken it out of the baggie, but hey. Let's go on ahead and take this guy apart and see about throwing these scales on the Delica. One thing that is worth noting is before I get started, it is very slightly favoring the clip side for right side carry. So that is something you want to keep in mind. But yeah, very, very curious to see how this guy fares in a set of fancy titanium scales. Like, does that change the nature of the beast? I think I reviewed a long time ago a set of Wilkins scales, but I think that was for a Benchmade Reptilian, or maybe it was for the Delica, I forget. But either way, we're going to go on ahead and take it apart. We're going to see, Okay, I'll leave the clip screws separate. And by the way, I'm using a little tray here that has all of the various screw holes here. And we will take all of the screws and hardware out of here. And we will take it from there. But anyways, yeah, very, very curious to see how I'm going to feel about the Delica given all of this, right? Given the change to the die. Should be interesting. Could be very interesting. And yeah, if you're curious about, by the way, any of the tools that I'm using, like these drivers or anything else, go ahead and check out nickshabazz.com/tools. I recently spent a bunch of time fully revising the site so that there is now text content rather than just a video link. It's just a lot easier to keep up to date and to give a little bit more context for each of those things. It means people don't have to sit through a 30-minute video if they want to find out, what screwdriver I'm using. Okay, so right now I'm still very much in the breakdown phase of things, but just taking out all the internal parts. One thing that's worth noting is that this does maintain the use of the stainless liners here. The liners will just drop into the pockets in the knife here, which I think is perfectly fine, right? There's certainly nothing to object to about that, but, it is one thing you're just going to want to consider, rather than replacing the liners outright with just full titanium or something like that. This is probably slightly less light. Okay, that's the pivot, so I'll put that there. Slightly less light than doing a complete replacement, but also probably a lot easier on their end. And I'm just taking these guys off, and I'm, again, being sure to, make sure that I keep the things that, go together. One of the important things that this comes with is this backspacer. It does have a separate titanium backspacer, although I think they also sell one in carbon fiber, which I'm sure would be kind of cool too. But anyways, yeah, that's going to be important. So the only things that are actually going to be left off when I do this replacement are the plastic bits, right, the FRN here, which, although I don't mind that color FRN, I like this color titanium a lot more. Well, it's not really a color so much as just being titanium. Whatever. Okay, so we are actually not that far off here. I'm going to go on ahead and... Does this have a necessary handedness? Go ahead and drop the backspacer down on here. By the way, just in the name of full disclosure, these were sent to me by Flytanium. They wanted my take on some things, and I am giving it here. But, okay, this is going to go in my pocket in this way, so this... Okay, yeah, so I want to rebuild it from this side up. This has a little bit of oil on it, which I don't particularly mind, of course, being Exxon Shabazz here. That doesn't bother me. Where is the other washer? It's probably... There it is, right on the other side there. All right, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is start reinserting fasteners here. And... One other thing that's worth noting is that this removes 3 of the 4 carry options. The only place to carry this now is going to be in your right pocket and tip down. I'm sorry, tip up. Oh, God, tip up, not tip down. So, yeah, you're going to want to keep that very strongly in mind as you are looking at these things, I know that there are some people, certainly lefties, who enjoy left side carry, and I think Flytanium is able to accommodate, but at the same time, yeah, and some people still do like tip up carry tip down carry for some reason, but yeah. Okay, so now I've got the bulk of the hardware in place. One of the important things, and one of the reasons I like this approach, is that you can see here this little pin here is milled out of metal. And so it's going to hold the back spring a lot more securely than generally it would. However, in the name of, I don't freaking know, I'm still going to go on ahead and do the classical Delica disassembly approach. Is this spring going to fight me getting in there? Interesting. Maybe not. Oh, no. Okay, there we go. Interesting. There must be... Oh, there's a little burr at the end of the spring. Whatever. It's fully seated in there. No problem. Okay, so in terms of your lubrication, I'm going to go ahead and use some knife pivot lube here. I'll put a little bit right here. I tend to use the knife pivot lube. Actually, I'll clean off the bearings, too. Bearings. Wow, you can tell. That's actually a really telling speech error. Right? The fact that I say bearings often enough rather than washers these days is just because so often we're using bearings instead of washers, to the point where it's ingrained in my very soul. I don't know how I feel about that, actually. Bearings can be great, but so can washers. All right. Wipe this off real quick. Wipe the back off here. And then I'll go ahead and drop the blade on. Might be thinking, Nick, you forgot the lock bar. Not exactly. Well, I mean, yes, it's not installed yet. Not hiding a lock bar from you in this current process. But at the same time, that was intentional. I will install that after the fact. And rotate. There we go. That was too much lubrication. What else is freaking new? And actually, let me clean the lock bar off. It's kind of interesting. Take a look at this little burr on this guy. Doesn't really matter, but ooh, that's quite the burr. All right, next up, am I forgetting a piece? No, that remaining screw is for the lock bar, and I don't want it to be in there yet. Okay. Right now, the blade is completely free. Not in the sense of I will give it to you for $0, but in the sense that nothing's holding it in. And that's fine, because the stop pin is the back lock bar on this particular model. All right. Just going ahead and get that roughly tight. Nothing too fancy yet. And I'm dropping my dropping screws. Not the end of the world, but it is something that's happening. All right. Put these guys in place. Did I really just eat that screw someplace? I sure did. And now I'm hitting the Batman mask off the camera. Got me a screw. Really? Okay, there it is. Yesterday, in terms of temporality, was the Cricket Ritual disassembly with the flying screw, so I'm a little gun-shy right now about screw yeeting. Scares me. All right, let's tighten that up. I feel like I must be forgetting something, but I don't think I am. They haven't gone for a perfect fit on the back of this backspacer. There's a chamfer going into it and out of it. At some level, that makes sense, right? That way, it doesn't look like they screwed up, so to speak, because it doesn't match perfectly, because maybe the tolerances are off or something like that. But it also is a little bit less appealing than a perfectly smooth back finish there. Whatever. I can understand why they went that route. Let's tighten. Are these scales slightly longer? It feels like the blade is a little deeper in there than... Oh, that's because the blade is a little deeper in there because it's not hitting the back lock as a stop pin right now. All right, and so now what we're going to go on ahead and do is I'm going to lubricate up this little pivot right here. Just so that way it's A, easier to get in there, and B, well, yeah, Now I'm going to drop this in place. The spring is installed in there. The spring has sprung, so to speak. But my goal is just going to be to, and actually I'll do this with the blade open. Should make my life maybe a bit easier. Now what I got to do is just slip this spring through. I want to make sure it's indexed such that the flat shaped part is on the bottom, so that it is in proper position to go in when it is in alignment. There we go, and it's in. It was actually a lot easier than I thought. Okay. Now I put a little thread locker on the back of this guy. And I put this guy in. Make sure that this doesn't get too tight either, or else the back lock is going to be harder to engage and disengage. I'm going to kind of back it, tighten it up, and then loosen it up a little bit afterwards. That way I know this is fully seated, but okay, that's easy enough. The pivot is too tight. There is no blade play. Let's go ahead and loosen the pivot up a little bit. There remains no blade play. I would argue the pivot's still too tight, so let's go ahead and tighten this down. No play. I didn't say tighten this down, I meant loosen it up. Well, I did say it. I'm not like freaking gaslighting you here. Okay, now there's play. So let's go ahead and tighten. That time I made it. Okay. No play. Reasonably smooth action. Next thing I'm going to do is apply a little bit of knife pivot lube to the very back of the blade tang there. It'll just lubricate the passage of the back lock on there. And there we go. Last step. I'm going to take the screws, and I'll just keep them all in the clip here. Mash them into the thread locker just a little bit to get some on there. Tighten, tighten, tighten. These 3 body screws. Well, clip screws, that is. And we are all set. My immediate first impression is actually, hey, I've got a size comparison, Spyderco Delica. My immediate first impression is that this definitely changes the feel of the knife. It's a lot heavier in the back. I might actually even be tempted to do, like, try the carbon fiber back spacer just to balance it off a little bit more. But it balances about here now versus on the original FRN. Actually, can I do this right next to each other without resulting in a hospital visit? It's a little bit further back, but it's not that crazy. But it balances further back, and it is heavy. I'm going to go ahead and assume that the density of K390 and VG10 is uniform. I think that's going to be the case, such that these would weigh the same amount normally. We're at 2.32 ounces for the VG10 version here versus 3.63. So this takes it out of the lightweight ounce per inch category. But it does feel very nice, and it does look pretty awesome, too. And turns it into a very different looking knife. So that's kind of neat. All right. Let's give this guy some carry. Check it out, see what I think. But, yeah, for the most part, so far, so good. Texturation, actually, is the other big question. Like, how different... Because the FRN adds a bunch of texture to it, right? The Volcano texture is, well, it's not going anywhere in the hand. Is this still Vaseline factory approved? By the way, I have no sense of whether Vaseline has ever issued any endorsements of knives, but nonetheless, we'll check that out. But for the moment, it's installed. That was very easy, and took my dear sweet time, and still was 14. Not bad. And I hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.